Hey there, it's Rachel here from the Workshop Whisperer, and I help auto repair shop owners just like you to achieve business success. So, on this live today, I'm going to be discussing with you part two of lessons from the startup years. So, this video is for you if you are in those startup years. So, you might be somewhere between having just opened your doors or having just taken over another business and up to 3 years down the track with your ownership. Or you are beyond that, but you're a little bit curious to see what mistakes you may have made that are similar to the ones that I'm going to talk about, and see if there are some ways that you can make some corrections that will actually speed up your journey out of struggle street. Because just because you're beyond the startup years doesn't mean that you're not struggling right now. And we speak to auto repair shop owners every single day who have been in business 10, 15, 20 years, or have taken over a business that has been open for decades, but find themselves in a position where money is really tight and they have a team that they don't necessarily love or a culture that they don't necessarily love. So today we're going to talk about 3 more mistakes that we see businesses make in startup. And you might be making them right now, as I said, and you can learn about some ways to fix those, or this video might help prevent you from making a similar mistake. And I certainly hope that is the case. So if you're on here with me live, please let me know in the comments. And if you catch this as a replay, then make sure you let me know as well. So the first mistake we're going to be talking about today is that in startup, shop owners feel like they don't have the money to invest in auto or mechanic specific software. And I'm particularly talking about invoicing software, so your management system, and also servicing and repair data or access to that information as well, which comes through a software platform. So let's talk about your lack of management software first of all. So in part 1 of this series of live videos, I spoke about how you might choose the wrong accountant, or you might have an accountant that is recommending that you only use accounting software because it's simple for them. This is an easy trap to fall into because when you're first starting out, you want things to be as simple as possible, and learning just one software platform when it comes to invoicing is probably appealing to you. But this is quickly going to become a situation that's going to hurt you, because your classic accounting invoicing programs don't allow you to effectively look after stock and stock control. They don't allow you to easily search your customer database so that you can bring up a previous invoice or any previous comments about your customers. So it's important right from the get-go that we allow in our budget some extra dollars per month in order for us to have mechanic-specific invoicing software. Now, we highly recommend here at the Workshop Whisperer, and a number of our clients, more than half of our client base, use Mechanic Desk online platform connected to either Xero or MYOB. Which are, of course, your accountant's preferred programs, Xero or MYOB here in Australia. And it's really, really important that you understand the value of the mechanic side in order to be able to explain that to your accountant. So what we're looking for here in a mechanic-specific program is something that's going to grow with you. That's why we like Mechanic Desk. You might be using another program, perhaps something that you inherited with the business if you took a business over, and it might be mechanic specific, but its functionality hasn't been improved for years and isn't going to do what you want it to do, and it's not going to grow with you. So when we don't have the right programs to help us invoice and maintain our customer database, we're likely not tracking our time properly. And this causes the biggest issue for us in the future, because it means that we're not invoicing out all of our labor hours, which means that we're not making the labor profit that we should be. And that means that we're simply leaving money on the table. And it's vital in your first few years that you have as much money flowing through your business as possible. I mean, that's a given. But one of the easiest ways for it to fall through the cracks is by you not having the correct software that has the functionality that means you can do continuous time clocking. I'm going to say here that even in the first instance, if you have a program that just does time clocking, don't worry about the continuous part, then that's better than nothing at all. But if we can get onto continuous time clocking, get ourselves in the habit of that, so that we can then train a team to be in the habit of that, well, you're not going to be leaving money on the table. And for those of you that have been following me for a while, you'll know that I'm a huge advocate of turning time clocking on, because even if we can just gather or recoup an extra 3 minutes of charged labor time for every hour that your technicians are on the floor. So 24 minutes a day, if they're doing an 8-hour day, that is going to directly translate to $10,000 extra profit per technician in your bank account each year, because you have already paid the expenses associated with that labor. That money that you've captured in those 3 minutes per hour is profit. It's pure profit. It goes straight to you, straight to your bank account. Now, if you're in startup and you've got 2 additional technicians beside yourself, and the 3 of you can make these 24-minute gains each day and have an extra $30,000 in your business bank account at the end of the year, think about what kind of difference that is going to make for you overall as a startup business. This is the difference between you falling a month behind with your parts bills. This is the difference in paying yourself way over the minimum wage. So having the right tools in terms of management software to start up with is vital. And I also mentioned here having the right software in terms of having access to servicing and repair data. Gone are the days when your old analog times guide is good enough. There is great software out there available for you that you sometimes don't even realize you've got free or cheaper access to through who you're ordering your parts through, or through which member associations you're with. So make sure you investigate those options to see what's available to you, because you may not even have to pay an extra cent, and every dollar matters when you are in those startup years. Now, what does it look like if you don't start using the right software when you're in the startup years by the time you get 5 years down the track? Now, you may have moved out of those sort of $20, $30, $40,000 months, and you might be somewhere in the 60s to 100,000. And I was speaking with a shop owner the other day who's doing $100,000 a month, but they don't correctly time track. So they know they're leaving money on the table, but they feel like because they haven't put their foot down and drawn a line in the sand with the team, that asking them now to change their ways and be on the clock all day long is going to blow up in their faces. Now, that's not an insurmountable issue. You can retrain your team that may have been with you for a while to embrace time tracking, but you've made it a hell of a lot harder for yourself by going through the last however many years and not having time clocking turned on. You would have left probably a 6-figure sum, so somewhere from $100,000 or more, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars or more in labor profit that you just never charged out. And imagine what you could have done with that money over the years had you started back in your early days with just investing in not only the software but the time to train your team. And most teams can be up and running with this in around 4 to 5 weeks, as in it's become a habit. But imagine if you'd invested that time to start with. So it's really important, and something that if you are in those early years right now and your accountant's saying to you, no, we'll just be okay if we use the accounting program. No, you won't. You've got to think about the future. And I'm a huge advocate for putting systems in place early, and $1 million systems, because you should have the vision that you will grow into that size business, even if it feels like it is decades away right now. You'd probably be surprised just how much growth you can achieve in your business if you put the right things in place to start with. So that's our first mistake for today. The next one is that because money is often tight in the startup years, you don't invest in the best types of equipment that you could. And in particular, a scan tool that is going to help you generate income. So we might see business owners come in at this point. They might have taken over an existing business that's got a few scan tools, but there's nothing really flash there. But they don't have an urgency in upgrading to something that is actually going to help make the money on every job, just about. And I mean, your scan tool should be charged out in every service. And you should be charging accordingly for your diagnosing time with your scan tool as well. Because while you're diagnosing, you can't be selling parts. Okay, so you should be increasing your labor rate to account for the fact that your parts gross profit per hour and your gross profit dollars per hour declines while you're diagnosing. But if you've got no valuable scan tool there that is going to help you identify what's going on, well, you're going to struggle for your customers to see value in that. Now, money is often tight in the startup years. I completely acknowledge that, but there are some great financing options that are almost too hard to ignore. And I know we've got Dan the Snap-on Man and we've got Craig from SabTool here in this Facebook group, and both offer amazing opportunities for you to have the best scan tool at your disposal, so that you're able to show your customers every time they come in for a service that you are being proactive with their vehicle, and then they don't question why you charge out for that. So there's two reasons why you should be charging your scan tool out on every service. And the first of those is because if you've got the right one, you are being proactive with their vehicle, having a look to see if there's any issues that might be forthcoming that the customer isn't aware of yet. But also, your skill that is required to operate that thing in the first place is worth charging out. So don't be fooled into thinking that while you're new in business, that you can't afford to put these things in place through great finance options. And I'm not an advocate for you running out and financing everything under the sun, but there are a few strategic things that you should definitely consider. And your scan tool is one of them. So scan tools will make you money. They are one of those pieces of equipment that you can actually charge out. Now, you can't necessarily do that with your hoist or with the tools that you buy to help you do your servicing and repairs, but your scan tool you can, and it's important that you get on top of this straight away. Often we'll see shop owners struggle for longer than they need to because they delay the purchase of an important piece of equipment like a great scan tool. So make sure, if you've been in that mindset, that you have another think about that, and perhaps reach out to one of the guys that I just mentioned who are here in the group and have a chat to them about what might work for you. Now, the third mistake that we're going to talk about today is something that happens really without you even realizing, and that is that you don't intentionally create a winning culture. When you start out in business, you are often so busy, you neglect to have meaningful conversations with your team about the culture that you would like to have, about the values that you want to work by. And this often leaves your team, and it might only be a small team, but it often leaves them to their own devices as you're running between serving your customers at the front counter and then putting your head under a hood to charge out as many hours as you can as well. So there's some bad habits can form in your other team members and even with yourself, and they know that you're busy, and those often toxic elements can form without you even realizing. As you start to get some time behind your journey and you bring some more team members in, you can often, bring your head out from under the hood to discover that you've got somebody who is controlling the environment in your workshop that perhaps shouldn't be, and you're starting to see some poor behaviours in them and in some of your other team members. And before you know it, you may have good team members leaving you because they don't see that that you're doing anything to stop this behaviour. So team members will always watch for what you're tolerating rather than listen to what you're preaching. So my advice here, if you're in the startup years, is to have a good think about how you want the culture in your business to be. Now, nobody sets out to have a bad culture, but what we need to think about here is what are the values that are meaningful to you, that you would like to see your team embodying as well. So, of course, we've got things like integrity and honesty, but we want to have open and honest communication. Is freedom or family things that are important to you as well? And do you want to see those embodied in your team members too? What this looks like when you get down the track, if you haven't put some thought and some intention around culture, is that you get a larger team and there's politics being played. And you may have backstabbing amongst team members. You may have team members coming to you, essentially dobbing their teammates in. And you may find yourself in a situation where you don't like addressing conflict, but you're forced into a situation where you need to take control. And you'll really sit back and think, if I just made more of an effort back in the earlier years and believed in myself as a leader, we wouldn't be in this position right now. So there are many, many fantastic books on culture and leadership out there. If you've never read Extreme Ownership, then I highly recommend that you go and listen to that one or read it by a couple of US Navy SEALs. Jocko Willink is one of them. So you really need to take control of the culture that is going to grow inside of your business. If you've gotten to 5 or 10 years in business with a great culture and you've never put any intention around that, then that's happened more by good luck than good management. So if you are 5 or 10 years down the track, maybe it is time for you to think about, okay, well, so far we've done all right here. What can we do to make sure that this culture of ours doesn't slip away? So there are 3 more lessons or mistakes from the startup years. I'm sure that you will be currently living through at least one of them, or perhaps reflecting back to see that, yep, that was you at one point. If you're still experiencing the side effects of some of those symptoms and you're further down the track than the startup years, then I encourage you just to spend a little bit of time thinking about what you need to put in place in order to correct those mistakes that have come along the path with you. If you're unsure of how to correct them, then why not reach out and have a chat with our membership team, and we'll put the link in the comments for you so that you can book in for a call. Don't forget that we're actually giving 5 of you the opportunity to win golden tickets to our Engine Room Client Retreat, which is happening at the end of this month. So on a post that we put in here yesterday, you'll see it's got a giant big golden ticket on it. You can click through the link there to find out the information about how you might get one of those. I trust that you found that useful. We'll be back in a couple of days' time with part 3.